What's the best hidden potential for the LRZ duo? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan battle video. In today's video, we are continuing our discussion on the best hidden potential builds for the LRZ duo and the LRGT duo from the 8-year anniversary. In our last video, we talked about the LRGT duo and how I recommended building crit to take full advantage of their spirit bomb, their revival skill. So in this video, we're going to spend some time talking about the Z duo. We'll go over what they do, kind of talk about the hidden potential system itself, and how that will influence my decision on how to build these guys should we actually end up pulling a dupe for them. So let's go ahead and let's start by taking a look at what they do. They are Power of Wishes, like the GT duo, or Final Trump Card, Category Key 3, HP Attack Defense 170%. They give an additional attack and defense 30% for characters who are also on Connected Hope and Majin Buu Saga. Now, opposite the GT duo, these guys are raising defense infinitely on their 12 key and raising their attack for 1 turn, causing colossal damage to the enemy. Whereas on their 18 key, they are greatly raising defense, so that's a double defense raise, and greatly raising attack for 1 turn, causing mega colossal damage to the enemy. So they're the opposite of the GT duo. The GT duo is building attack, so that way they can launch that that revival standby skill with more and more power. These guys are raising defense, however. Their power is going to come from elsewhere. So let's start by looking at their passive. Their passive is attack and defense 200%. They get an additional attack and defense 50%. When HP is 50% or more, they have an additional attack and an additional defense 100%. An additional key 1 per key sphere obtained is the first attacker in a turn, and an additional attack 100%, and an additional key 2 per key sphere obtained as the second or third attacker in turn. They launch an additional attack that has a great chance, the 70% chance of becoming a super attack when key is 18. They launch an additional super attack when key is 24. They also have an additional key 1 and chance of performing a critical hit 10% up to 50% with each super attack performed. Alright, so their standby skill, they switch to standby for 5 turns. They gain 1 charge counter per key sphere obtained for all allies. And this can be activated when HP is 50% or less, or when after performing 4 or more super attacks during the battle from the 4th turn. So either be 50% or have done 4 attacks after the 4th turn. Either one works. Now, once in standby mode, they basically become invulnerable. Unlike the GT duo, where they basically lose all their defense, so that way you can die and launch the skill. These guys become invulnerable. They are unable to attack, though, while they are in that mode. They are unable to attack except when the finish effective is activated. They get 250% defense and guard all attacks for 4 turns from the start of turn. They randomly change key spheres to rainbow key spheres and reduce damage received by 8% per key sphere obtained, and an additional attack 500% when performing the finishing attack. The finishing attack is the Spirit Bomb or the Super Spirit Bomb, and it bases on whether or not you fill up the charge counter, right? So it temporarily raises attack 15% per charge counter accumulated and causes ultimate damage to the enemy. So the charge counter is basically every time you pick up a key sphere, that's 1 counter. Or you get the finishing attack too, 20% attack per charge counter accumulated, causing ultimate damage, and this is when you get 39 or more charge counters. So basically, I mean, realistically, unless you have a really bad orb RNG, you're more than likely after 2 turns of standby going to activate this. And then once you activate it, you can see that that's where all the power is coming from. So knowing that most of their power is coming from here instead of from their base stats that they have to build every turn, like the GT duo, my personal at first glance recommendation is going to be going additionals for these guys, especially because they are a defense raiser. They don't have any additional defensive tech until they're in standby, like the GT duo. So they are heavily reliant on this extra defense raise. And especially like this is a 2.5 raise every turn, right? Because you're getting the double raise for the Great League defense, and more than likely you're launching those additional attacks, right? So, you know, on a good turn, they can launch up to 2, 3, 4, right? 4 supers on a turn, and now you've got you know, a 3.5 raise for the turn. So this is really, really good. They're going to be, they can pick up defense quick, but they can get caught off guard really early, which is why I think those additionals are very, very helpful. Now, I don't think you should go full additional, and here's why. They are a Fizz type unit, so they're already getting a free 5 additional for being Fizz. So that means you can feed in a little extra critical hit just to help that spirit bomb. Not that it needs it, right? I've very, very easily gotten 30 million non-crit attacks, but the crit will help you break through when you're at type disadvantage. That's kind of where the key is there, which for them, they're Fizz. So do we have an int type or STR type boss? We don't, do we, actually? I guess Red Zone Cell or the STR phase of Omega Shenron, I guess. But still, nonetheless, it's very helpful. So knowing that they have kind of some base additionals in there, I think you can get away with just throwing in, like, you know, I think you can go, what would it break down to? Since they're Fizz, right, they get that additional 40%, excuse me, still recovering that voice. So you could probably build them with a mix of additional and critical hit, right? Because they're already on their base alone launching 3 supers per turn, 4 if you get the additional hit here. So I would give them maybe 15 additional, and then throw the rest into critical hit. That way, just you have that little extra insurance when you're at type advantage. But you wouldn't be wrong to go full additional either, I think, with these guys. Like the GT duo, I don't think there's necessarily a wrong way, although you do want to have a little more additionals in these guys compared to the GT duo, because they do need that extra defense raise, but the crit will help them. So I definitely think a mixed build for them is a good option, because like the GT duo, or the GT duo, you do want that little bit of crit to ignore the type disadvantage, and for some of the higher enemies defense, like for Shenron, for example, even though you're type neutral, being able to break through his huge defense with a crit is helpful, because, right, remember, crit is a 1.5 times multiplier versus the 2 times multiplier that type advantage gets, right? So you definitely want to make sure you have a little bit in there, and it'll help. Let's go back and look at these guys here. Where are they? Where is it? Yeah. Yeah, it would definitely help, especially because they are getting it, that extra attack and defense, or that extra attack per key sphere, right? So they do have that little bit of nuking style passive through this, because that's essentially what this is, right? Because it's per counter, it's essentially like per key sphere. So that combined with the 500%, I would definitely say have a little bit of crit in them. So mixed build is my recommendation. So anyways, guys, that is the video. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let me know, what would you recommend building this, guys, if you ended up pulling a dupe during the 8-year anniversary, right? If you are planning on just going for the 69%, what would you put them at? 79%, what would you put them at? This is just my recommendation. Feel free to disagree with me and let me know your build in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.